So here we have an old 860 Massey combine. Not going to apologize too much for it. All you got to do is shut your eyes and point and you'll find something that's wore out on it. So I was just going to explain a little bit how a combine works and give you a tour. These fingers pick up the swath and the rubber rollers kind of feed it into those fingers. And the augers kind of help guide it into the center as you drive along. The swath goes up inside the neck. There's about, I think there's 4 of these paddles in there. They spin around, they've got a rubber end on them, and that kind of starts the thrashing process, knocks some of the grain out of the heads, and paddles the straw and the grain up. And there's the next set. They spin and take it up further and down into the... This is where all the action takes place. This is the cylinder. So these are the rub bars. And you can see the grooves in them. The grain heads go through there and gets rubbed against them and against those bars that are inside. That part is called the concaves. The cylinder is spinning 800 to 1000 RPMs. It's really cruising. The speed's adjustable up or down, and it knocks the grain out of the heads and separates the straw from the grain. The idea is the grain falls through the holes in the bottom of the concaves, and a further separate thrashing operation takes place. There's the oil filters, the starter. Back in there's the fan, the radiator. It's a 6-cylinder Perkins diesel engine. Those are the fuel filters, injector pump, hydraulic controller, and more fun stuff back in there. We're climbing up top the combine here. I'll flip open some of the doors. This is back down where I was but on top of the engine. That's the air intake, the exhaust pipe. The other side of the engine, you can see the fan and the radiator from up top. There's an alternator. I had it rebuilt this year. Air conditioning pump. This is the top of the radiator. This is the hopper. It's where all the clean grain goes after the separating operation has happened. There's a cross auger that takes it across at the bottom when you're unloading. Brings the grain over to this side over here. Then it comes up that big tube and goes out. Gets loaded onto the truck. That swings in and out on a hydraulic cylinder. The grain is separated. It comes up out of the combine up that tube there. This cross auger brings it out and kind of dumps it in the middle of the hopper. We'll move our way over to the back of the combine. Flip open the door and crawl in. You can see in the back, we're looking down, those are called straw walkers. And what they do is they walk the straw from the cylinder all the way out the back of the combine and into the chopper. The chopper spins around really fast. It's got a bunch of blades on it that are about the size of meat cleavers. It's just not as sharp. It spins and chops the straw up and spits it out the back. Those little pieces of steel that stick out there can be adjusted in or out to adjust the aggressiveness of the chopper. Back to our straw walkers here. Any of the grain that's in the heads gets jarred and falls out onto this pan down below it. And these straw walkers are on a crankshaft on wooden bearings that causes them to go up and down both at the front and the back. And they're really sharp and pokey, and there isn't a lot of room in here. So we'll work our way into the front of the combine, closer to the cylinder. Let's see the grain pan down below. It actually vibrates too back and forth and works the grain towards the front. Working our way towards the front of the combine on the straw walkers. And there are some paddles here, or some rubber flaps. We'll move them out of the way. And right up there just is where the cylinder is. And the straw comes out of the cylinder onto the straw walkers, and the grain falls down below onto the pan below and works its way back to the cleaning sieves. This is a pretty unpleasant part of the combine to do any work in. It's dusty and everything is pokey and sharp and hard, ouch, and sharp. So now we're coming back out. You can get a little bit of a, you can see down there the crank and the wooden bearings. Looks like one of them needs some work there. We'll come back out. We're following the straw on its way up the straw walkers, back down to the chopper. There we are. So here's a view back of the combine, and there's the chopper where the straw comes out, and there's these fins that are supposed to throw the straw and spread it after it's been chopped so that it can be worked into the field better. So now we're immediately underneath where the straw walkers were. This is the pan that the grain would fall through the straw walkers onto. And you can see it rocks back and forth on these wooden bearings on both sides and at the front, and shakes all the grain down, falls through the straw. And you can see the cylinder concave, the back end of it, right up at the front. And all the grain should fall down onto there and then bumple along until it falls onto the cleaning sieves. And these are the cleaning sieves here. And they are adjustable. They're louvered, so you can take these handles and turn them up or down to set how far apart they are. There's a front section and a back section on the top one, and then a front section, or just a middle section that's all by itself. It's also adjustable. And then the bottom sieve there, and all that, once it goes through this final one at the bottom, That is your clean grain. That's as clean as it's going to get on the combine, and it goes up to be augered to the grain tank at the top. And then this final one at the back is the return. So anything that hasn't been cleaned and still has some weight to it at this point is going to fall down to the return into a separate, it goes into a separate run and goes through the re-thrasher. And the re-thrasher spits it out up top over there. I can't quite see it from where we are. And it's just a small version of the combine on the side. We'll look at it later. It does the thrashing part again to try and clean everything up. So underneath the return for our grain that needs to be re-thrashed, there's a cross auger that comes out at the bottom, and it takes the grain that needs to be re-cleaned up here and into this drum onto the side. It's got some replaceable parts in it. It's just a smaller version. You can see the rub bars up there. These are replaceable when they get wore out. Or sorry, these are the rub bars in here. I don't know what they're called, but they're essentially the rub bars. They do the same thing as up the cylinder. And it re-cleans the grain and dumps it back in onto the sieves, and it gets a second time around. Shot at cleaning. Here is the clean grain elevator. The clean grain comes out at the bottom and goes in here, and it gets paddled all the way to the top into the hopper. The hopper's got a couple of holes in the bottom. You just pull that out at the end of the season or whenever things get wet to clean it out. There's a couple of air filters and a pre-cleaner here. This is a cylinder drive pulley. Those pulleys take the power back to the re-thrasher and also back to the chopper. A lot of moving parts. They all wear out. It's a gearbox. And that cylinder speed adjustable pulley that goes in and out to set the speed of your pulley. And transmission drive to the wheels. I have a bearing in here. It needs to be replaced this fall. Chains that drive takes it down to the front paddle, and then the chains that drive the paddles are on the other side. So this side's under the stairs of the combine. Lots more moving parts here. The big pulley there is part of the main drive. There's a big wide belt on it with a bunch of grooves on it. It's like a giant version of the serpentine belt that's underneath the hood of your car. You can see the fan drive and the fan. Transmission and clutch. Belt goes up to a couple of variable speed pulleys. They move in and out, set your speed up or down within the gear ratio you've selected with your transmission. I think there's 4 gears, and then it's adjustable within each gear range. So this pulley has been replaced, obviously. It's a straw walker drive pulley. And this is the bottom of the unloading auger. got a clean out door there. Just pop this open for fun. You can see a lot of the mechanism that causes the rocking action that takes place on the sieves and the grain pans and stuff. A lot of that comes from down in here. Lots of moving parts. These are the chains that drive the unloading auger. Most of these older combines have a cylinder wrench on the side. And they're pretty substantial. We use this anytime we get plugged up. We can stick it on several parts of the combine to back it up, or if we need to turn something. Gives you a fair bit of leverage, and you need it if you're stuck plugged up. You'll notice the nut on this side is hollow, and they do that, and I guess they do that in case you forget your cylinder wrench on there. The nut will collapse instead of tearing everything apart. It's not something you want to try, but I guess that's the idea. You should put your wrench away. This is a rock trap. It's a door that's underneath the cylinder. And if you happen to pick up a rock or something that gets in the cylinder will throw it into this little area kind of at the front, rather than the rock being beat up and bouncing around in there forever. It's got someplace to go, and occasionally you gotta open that up and clean it out, and it fills up with crap, but that's what it's for.